Two of my favorite topics to talk about are patient experience and healthcare marketing. And so when there's an opportunity to talk about both, I jump at the chance. And my next guest is one of my favorite people to talk to about both of these topics. I can't wait for you to hear our conversation. Hello and welcome to Swaay.Health, where we bring you the latest insights and interesting stories from the brightest minds in healthcare marketing. I'm Colin Hung, and joining me today on the program is Dr. Adrienne Boissy, who is the Chief Medical Officer at Qualtrics. She is amazing, and she just finished doing her keynote here at HMPS 24 in Las Vegas, Nevada. I couldn't wait to get her on camera to talk about how patient experience departments and marketing departments need to work closer together in order to improve the patient experience at a much faster and more accelerated rate. Let's get to it. Dr. Boissy, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Colin. It's so good to see you.
It is always a pleasure to have you on the show because our conversations are always so fascinating. You have so much insight to share. In fact, that's why I wanted to catch up with you, because you just finished your keynote where you brought a lot of neuroscience and talking about marketing and, of course, tying it to patient experience. So much to unpack there. It's such an awesome presentation.
Oh, well, now you're just being charming, Colin, which I very much appreciate. But it was a topic that I love digging into and really trying to help make some connection points and integrations for our audience. I feel so grateful. A group of marketing executives invited a neurologist in, so I feel like I gotta do a great job.
You really grounded a lot of what we understand about emotional reaction to marketing in the science of neuroscience. So that I found was very validating, actually.
Oh,
so
great.
That was really good. But I wanted to zero in on a point you made towards the end of your presentation, and that was around the fact that you're still seeing not many organizations bringing their marketing teams together with their patient experience teams. They're still sort of operating in silos. So let's talk about that a little bit. What are you seeing there?
Couple things I'm seeing as I go around the country. First of which is organizations are still deciding how they want to define their brand and certainly how they're defining patient experience. Is it this or is it this? I also think there's a lot of reimagining and evolving the brands and the brand promises, and yet isn't it fascinating that those principles we set forth, whether it's be a part of a team or be empathic or we care for everyone, is a promise we make to patients, our employees, and our communities. And I'm always curious about, maybe we should start looking at the world like everybody actually is a chief experience officer. And when we're talking about experience, no matter how we define it, the patient's lens is the most important one to take. And that would mean that we have to maybe break some of our internal structures of how we've always operated, that marketing does campaign and crafts messages and patient experience gets better scores on surveys. I think maybe it butts up against those notions, and maybe that's why A, it's hard, and B, we still see organizations within some of those lanes. And I'm really hopeful and encouraged that here, we poked today to sort of nudge the idea that you get a lot more in common with each other, and there's a lot more we could do together if we're strategically aligned, talking about the brand promise, and then pulling it through the entirety of the journey.
Well, I think you just mentioned it there, right? Like marketing is responsible, most parts, for the brand. And how that brand is experienced, though, extends obviously to staff and extends to how patients perceived their experience with the organization.
Exactly.
And I think that's where you're saying the gap exists, is that marketing, it just sort of stops once they bring the patient in, and then a different department takes over to run that brand.
People have been saying that to me, right? I'm tasked with growth, or I'm tasked with pulling them in, or moving somebody from pre-contemplative to contemplative and getting that first appointment. And then, I don't know always what happens. And so I do think there's an opportunity for us to think, I don't want to say holistically, as I feel like we talk about that, but like if you do all that hard work of getting them in, then, and the people love their care teams once they're here because we have amazing humans in healthcare, then how do we keep them on the back end?
Right.
Or how could we align the messaging so it feels familiar on the back end? How are we reinforcing gratitude and appreciation and building that community of patients who've come, brought their families, and love the brand for decades and decades? Wouldn't that be fun to think about?
That would be very fun. And it would be fun to essentially blend the budgets, right? Like because we understand that patient experience often doesn't get a ton of budget, or if it is, it's dedicated mostly to the people. And marketing, with the overall responsibility of driving that brand experience from start to finish, could apply some of the dollars to making sure that this part of the experience is as good as the front or the back ends.
Well, you're raising a point we hadn't really talked about very much, which I think is brilliant. This notion that the collective thinking has to become that the experience matters, right? We just spent an hour talking about how 75% of consumer decisions are emotional ones.
Right.
And I think marketing has a lot to teach all areas of the business around how do we tap into emotions? How do we make employees feel like they belong? How do we do a better job of that with our internal comms? And also, I think there's a tremendous amount of, I would say, pain and suffering and risk that people perceive in reaching out to healthcare right now. And I think in the words we choose, in the messages we create through all the channels we have, we could speak to that much more effectively if we were closer together. You also tap the big one though, which is budget, right? Patient experience budgets right now are either shrinking or brands are going all in and saying, you know what, it's clear we need to connect the data across from the website to the discharge. And so that's not a conversation we often have, and it's a really great one to have. Like, in these financial times, we have to connect dots that make sense for our people. And quite honestly, I bet the rewards would be much greater in terms of patient outcomes, patient retention, employee retention, if people feel supported in doing this work. It's really important.
Yeah, no, I'm certainly encouraged by some of the more recent developments. We're starting to hear a lot more stories of marketing working together with their HR departments and making sure that staff feel valued, and also the type of people that are attracting and the way they portray themselves, and now much more aligned between what HR wants to portray and what marketing is portraying the brand.
Yeah.
We're also seeing it on the financial experience side, right? With the tail end of paying the bills and getting the bills as now being a focus area. It naturally would lead to hopefully lead to where we're now focusing about the mushy middle, right? While they're in your facility, what can we do as marketing to affect that journey?
Well, I love that. I love that idea, and I love the idea of making sure we're co-design. I think patients can help us co-design that. I think sometimes we forget.
You're right.
Don't recognize we've got this cadre of people, many of whom are advocates for the brand or may love the brand or love their care team. And they can help us craft that messaging too, right? A top 5 list of everything you need to know on day 1. Top 3 list of everything you need to know on day 7. Why aren't patients crafting that? Why do we need,
Exactly.
So moving well beyond advisory councils or a patient on your team, and really sort of partnering in a meaningful way to give that work to them. Let them be the architects and authors of what that experience. They may know better. And to your point, I think this ability to use our language, whether it's the marketing professional that knows that best, or the care team, or the patient experience professional, who cares? Let's get them all in a room together having a conversation. One of the trends I'm really excited about is you are seeing chief consumer officers come in to healthcare from organizations. I think about Julie Washington at Trinity or Alex Greengold at Memorial Hermann. Like, they have a completely different perspective. They're using design thinking to imagine the entirety of it. And I think we're at the tip maybe of that curve, sort of, running down the other side. And I do believe marketing has a tremendous role in that conversation.
Amazing. Dr. Boissy, it's always great to have you on camera with us and sharing your insights. Where can people go to learn more about Qualtrics?
Qualtrics.com. And next month we have X4, which is our Experience Management Summit in Salt Lake, May 1st through the 3rd. I'm going to be there. I hope you're there. And you can certainly find me there if you're going to be on site. Otherwise, happy to reach out. I'm adrienneb@qualtrics.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for being on our program.
I love you, Colin. Thanks for having me. Swaay.Health, let's go.
Hey, I want to thank Dr. Boissy for coming on camera with me. She is just wonderful. So many great insights. And I love her call to action, and frankly, her challenge to both marketers and patient experience folks to get together and really align around improving the experience in the between time while that patient is in the bed. So we do a great job in marketing on the front end to bring the patient in and get the appointment booked. We do a fantastic job at the tail end when we do the RCM, financial experience. Now we got to work together with patient experience folks to help bring that experience up to the same levels while they're inside the organization. And hey, if you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, please like and subscribe. Also, head on over to Swaay.Health, that's Swaay with 2 A's, .health, where you can find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode.